In 2019, Damian Lillard signed the biggest contract in NBA history. This contract pays him approximately $196 million. That's $49 million per year, $600,000 per game, and $12,500 per game minute. For perspective, if Logo Lillard dropped a $100 bill, it's not worth the 1 game second for him to pick it up. He's already made $200 in that time. If you're fortunate, you get paid what you're worth. But when you play, you're always worth something, right? Wrong. Back in the 1950s, the pioneer of the tip-in was a guy who only played 1 game in the NBA. This guy actually wanted to be a farmer on his father's ranch. He became a 6'3" rebounding stud in college with this new tip-in move. He even holds a rebounding record at Purdue because of it. And if it wasn't for a couple beers and a game of poker, he might have been able to set one in the NBA. And the strangest thing about this all, he was never paid a penny for being in the league, and he never signed a single contract. This is a ClutchPoints documentary on Carl McNulty, the guy who never got paid to play, and why his legacy goes far beyond his disappearing salary. In the 1954-55 season, the NBA looked like a completely different league. It was a season that started with 9 teams, but ended with 8. There was no three-point line. The 24-second shot clock was brand new, and that year, one of the shortest, strangest NBA careers of all time ended. Carl McNulty wasn't even planning on going to college, let alone the NBA. He figured he would just work on his family's farm after high school. But what changed his life was a basketball hoop his dad had hammered into the side of the barn. He would spend hours shooting, and whenever he missed, he would tip the ball over and over until it went in. He used that technique playing high school ball for a small school in Indiana, and surprisingly, he was discovered by Purdue, who offered him a scholarship. At Purdue, McNulty soared. He became an all-Big Ten forward. He was inhaling rebounds and tipping it back in, a revolutionary concept. McNulty's signature moment came in 1951 when he pulled down 27 rebounds in a game. He set the Purdue record for rebounds in a game. And how did he do it? Tipping. A lot of my rebounds that day were offensive rebounds, McNulty said later. Not sure I ever brought the ball down. For his rebounding prowess, McNulty was drafted in 1952 by the Minneapolis Lakers. He was the 96th pick, and then was promptly traded to the Milwaukee Hawks. At the time, McNulty had been touring the country on a college all-star team playing for the Harlem Globetrotters. But he decided to put his basketball career on hold, leaving to fulfill his mandatory military service. He was a part of the U.S. Navy for 2 years before coming back and deciding to settle down. But in the middle of the 1954-55 NBA season, he was coaching a high school basketball team when the Milwaukee Hawks reached out. They wanted McNulty to come back and play. He agreed and joined the Hawks in a game against the Rochester Royals, but he didn't go in. The team then took a train to Milwaukee for a game against the Pistons, where he had his first and only NBA playing time. 14 minutes, 6 shots, 2 points. And after the game, he retired. But it wasn't for his play on the court. It was on that train ride back to Milwaukee that opened his eyes to the NBA lifestyle. On that train, McNulty recalled the players staying up late playing poker. The Hawks coach was even having a beer. McNulty didn't think it was a life for him, especially with a young son at home. He had, after all, wanted to settle down when he returned from the Navy. And so he left the NBA world behind him, without ever getting paid. I never asked the Hawks what I'd be making, and they never mentioned it, McNulty said. In a league that gives its players millions today, he's the only player to ever play for free. After McNulty retired, he made a bigger impact on his community in Indiana than he did in the NBA. He coached high school basketball for 32 years in 5 different schools. With Kokomo High, he won 13 sectional titles. Along with coaching, he was also a high school teacher, driver's ed instructor, and one of the state's best softball pitchers. He was so good, in fact, that he's in the Indiana Softball Hall of Fame. In his 44 years playing fast-pitch softball, it's estimated he threw 100 no-hitters. He did all of it on the side of being a committed family guy. At 89 years old, Carl McNulty passed away in January 2020. He will always make headlines as the guy who was never paid to play in the NBA. After his rebounding at Purdue, we'll remember him as one of the innovators of the tip-ins. But he was so much more. As a longtime coach and teacher, as a husband and father, he touched the lives of hundreds of people in Indiana. And he chose that life, one of selfless giving over the NBA lifestyle, a choice not many would have made. Because in the long run, getting paid or not paid by the NBA doesn't mean much. But getting paid in love from all those he impacted in his community, well, that means everything.